Good afternoon, everybody, and a warm welcome to everybody that's joining us. We've got our occupational therapist, Ronel McAlpine, who's going to speak to us about executive functioning and how you can organize yourself. The child needs to organize themselves, and I think in every home we can find, Ronel, that children aren't organized. So maybe us as adults also can learn from your talk today. But the presentation is over to you. What I just want to say before you start, is if there's any questions afterwards we can answer, or you can answer. If there is questions, we will read them for you. There's a chat box there. We'll go through those and then we'll try and answer as much as we can. Thank you. Ronel, over to you.
Super. Thank you very much. I just have to say, this is the strangest presentation ever because I don't know who you are and I don't know if you're going to fall asleep or maybe you're having a glass of wine, which might be the better option. So enjoy. I hope that you'll find the information useful. So just to start off with, my name is Ronel McAlpine and I'm the occupational therapist based at the primary school, De La Salle Holy Cross College Junior School, and I also have a small practice outside of the school. I am a pediatric occupational therapist. My special interests are in children with developmental delays and how that impact on their mainstream school performance and their daily functioning. I'm also interested in sensory challenges, handwriting, and then of course executive functioning. So I've been an OT for many, many years, but more importantly, I've also been a mom of 2 sons who are now big, and I've dealt with their executive functioning challenges. So I think I'll have quite a bit to say. So I'm going to share my screen. Just bear with me for a second. Hope to get this right the first time. And slideshow. And there we go. I trust you can all still hear me. Marelise, just double check. Can you hear me? Marelise?
Everything is good. Everything. Yeah, you can
okay, so hopefully after a hectic day, after the midterm today, your brain doesn't feel as frazzled as this poor little fellow on the screen. But yeah, so we're going to talk about a couple of things related to executive functioning. And I think once I'm done, you'll probably have a very good understanding of the terminology, what it means, and how it impacts on our daily lives. But first of all, I think it's important to know why you are here. So in the advertisement that we put out, the questions asked, it said, is your child disorganized? Do they struggle to work independently? Are their room and homework spaces always a mess? Do they lose and forget things? Do they struggle to deal with frustration and setbacks? Do they leave important tasks for the last minute? And do you sometimes feel like you have to be their secretary? So I take it that you are here today because you answered yes to at least some of those questions. Or perhaps you're a teacher and you're recognizing some of those things in the children that you teach. Or perhaps you're thinking of yourself when you are here today. And that's great too. And hopefully you will learn some strategies to help. So what we're going to do today, we've already spoken about why you are here. We're going to look at what is executive functioning, why is it important, how does it develop, and to just have a little bit of a better understanding about the brain processes involved in executive functioning. And then hopefully you'll leave with an understanding of all the different functions that there are, and maybe some ideas on how to help your child. Okay, so what is executive functioning? So there are a whole lot of executive functions, which I'm going to describe later on, but basically executive functions are a set of brain-based skills that help you manage yourself and your resources in order to achieve a goal. So I'm going to just give you a second to digest that because that's quite a lot that was said. People are sending me messages to say they're waiting to be let in. So, yeah. Anyway, so yes, so these are a whole lot of things that work together, and it manages what you want to do every day. So these skills help you to stay focused, plan ahead, to regulate your emotions, to monitor your own learning, and to think flexibly and creatively. That's a whole mouthful, but we'll understand it a bit better soon. And then very, very important is that executive function is a much more accurate predictor of success in later life than any test scores, academic test scores, or your IQ, or your socioeconomic status. And I think that is why it's so important. And when I was preparing for the talk, it immediately came to mind that, you know, we have a lot of children who do very well at school. They do very well in primary school, they excel in high school, and then they get to university and suddenly they just don't do so well. They drop out, they repeat a year, they change course for various reasons, but very often it is that they have not developed executive functions. So while they were in the environment where things were structured, where your teachers were there to help you, where you were you had people guiding you and you weren't in charge of everything, they were fine. And then when they get to university, suddenly now everything's on them. There's no spoon feeding. You actually got to teach yourself almost. And now with the online teaching at universities, it's just almost worse. So I think that is where that comes in when it says that it's a more accurate predictor. And that also explains why some people who are really not academic, and I mean, I can think of a whole lot of children who went to primary school with me, who really, they were just there. And they are doing so well in life now. And I think part of it is that they've learned to use those executive functioning skills to get them where they want to be. So just interestingly, while we're on this, while I was researching some stuff for the presentation today, I also read some other interesting things. So they say, even though these skills are so essential, we aren't born with them. Okay, we're not born with skills that enable us to control our impulses, to make plans, or to stay focused. What we are born with is we're born with a genetic blueprint. And now already, I think if we think, ooh, maybe I've got those issues, my child will have the same, it does kind of imply that. But you are born with a genetic blueprint with the potential to develop these skills and capabilities or not, depending on our experiences during infancy, throughout childhood, and into adolescence. So our genes provide the blueprint, and the early environments in which children live, that leaves the lasting signature on those genes. So that puts things in perspective of how important it is to help our children to develop those things. It's not a developmental thing. It's not going to come. We're not all going to walk one day. So we're not going to all be able to organize and plan. It's skills that we do have to develop. It develops through brain maturation. That's the one thing. But very importantly, it develops through interaction that children have in their lives, be it with caregivers, parents, siblings, friends, and teachers. And that is where they learn these skills. The skills typically develop rapidly between age 3 and 5. So if we're looking at our grade RR class, they're in a very, very important phase of the development of the executive functioning skills. Then it's followed by a spike in early adolescence. So probably like our grade 6s and 7s. And then there's a lucky spike again in early adulthood. And what's very interesting is that these skills only mature between age 25 and 30. So your young adults living at your house might still need some assistance in some areas. But why are these skills so important? Because it's needed for our academic performance, life skills, and social skills. And it is not related to your intelligence at all. And that is why it causes such frustration for children who are bright, have a good IQ, and they actually do not achieve or perform well at school because they lack these other set of skills that they need. You may also find that almost all children who have an attention deficit disorder, diagnosed or not, struggle with executive functioning. However, not all children who struggle with executive functioning have an attention deficit disorder. But it almost goes without saying that those are the children who struggle more with these skills. And just, you know, it was very interesting when you read up that they say that a child with an attention deficit disorder, their brain develops 30% slower than a neurotypical child. So your neurotypical child is your average child out there. And that they very often, that maturation does not catch up. So that's a very important thing to know. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is let's go on to these functions, because I've got on the screen a whole lot of pictures with a whole lot of words, and I think what is important to know, or that is that it's called executive function. So I think it's only appropriate if we compare this with like a business model maybe. So let's say that your executive functioning is your CEO of your company, and then he just wants to get that job done. And then we have, like you see on the screen, about 8 to 10, depending on where you're looking, they keep adding some, and some are seen as more important than others. But there are about 8 or 10 executive functions, and we can refer to them as the board of directors. So they are making sure that you actually, they do the work of the CEO, and they are making sure that you get your stuff done and that you're all organized and, you know, that things go easy for you. But just for fun, I thought we'll add a third employee. So I added that secretary that I was mentioning in the questions about, you know, why you are here today. So who's the secretary? The secretary is the parent, that one who quickly steps in when the board of directors are seen not to do their job. They save the day, they protect the child from possible bad marks or from any consequences that they might have to deal with. The secretary is the one who plans the school project, looks up the information on the internet, prints out the pictures, cuts it out when it's the night before the project is due and nothing has been done. I think it sounds a bit familiar to me too. Or the secretary is the one who packs the school bag with everything that the child needs for school, their PT kit, if they're in OT, maybe their OT pouch. Children never know what's in their bag because they didn't do it themselves. They can't say, yes, I've put my folder in, because they didn't pack it themselves. Or the secretary is the one hovering around the lost property, looking for that blazer that disappeared yesterday. And when that happens, those directors never learn to do the job, because the secretary keeps saving them. And that is what we want to avoid. Parents stepping in to do these things for children. We've just said that it's something that children have to learn, skills that they have to develop. So you want to give them that opportunity to learn. Okay. So this, you know, in terms of the brain, here are some of the functions. And you can see that they are regulated by certain parts of the brain. Okay, so we know that where the yellow and the green is the time management and persistence is your frontal part of your brain, and that is the part of the brain that develops last. Your paying attention and flexible thinking are more at the back of the brain, and that develops first. So that's why perhaps a lot of adults still struggle with the time management aspect of things. Okay, so before we actually talk about all these different functions and how you can help your child and just develop a little bit of a better understanding of what they are, I've put on the screen teach explicitly. Okay, so according to the dictionary, explicitly means in a clear and detailed manner, leaving no room for confusion or doubt. Okay, so yes, these skills, it develops from brain maturation. The children learn it from other people around them. But then when we get to a certain age where we can see at school that these children don't have the skills, or you at home can see my child does not have the skill, then it has to be taught explicitly without any doubt This is what we're trying to achieve, and this is what we're going to teach. So very directly. Okay, so let's start first by looking at the first executive function. So the first one is planning. So what is planning? Planning means your ability to develop a strategy before you start a task. Okay, so a lot of children struggle with this. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to plan something. They don't know what steps are needed for the outcome in the end. So what you can do to help your child or yourself to practice these skills, and teachers in class, there's a great opportunity to do those things, is to provide opportunities for them to practice prioritizing by planning simple tasks. So you don't start by planning a wedding. No, you start by building a snowman or making your bed or any of those familiar tasks. But for children to see that there's steps to it. Okay, talk about how you do these things. I had an interesting conversation with one of my therapy moms the other day. We were trying to teach her child to be more independent. And by doing that, we want him to do certain chores and take responsibility for those. And we always have to remember when we do things like that, it's a great thing because we need to do that, but that children don't necessarily know how to do these things. So it's important that you talk about it and that you show them the steps of making the bed. First, you're going to take off all the blankets and the pillows. You're going to straighten the sheet, shake out the duvet cover, put it on, puff up the pillows, put them one on this side, one on that side. They need to have very specific rules for doing these things. And as they start getting the idea of how this works, they can start generalizing that into other activities. Very important to discuss the most important steps of a task, what comes first, what comes second, so the sequence of events. Make a to-do list and then help them to prioritize. Not a to-do list that's your to-do list. They make a to-do list. You help them to prioritize. So what's more important? So we need to do this project. Do we need to get information? Do we need to start writing immediately? Are we going to draw a beautiful picture that's going to take us a couple of hours? What is more important? What do we need to spend our energy on? Rank those things in order of importance. You are modeling the skill to your child by doing that. They're learning from us. So the same thing in the class. So, tomorrow we're going to make biscuits. So what do we need to do? Okay, we need to check the recipe, who's going to bring what, and we're going to make sure that the creative room is free so that we can use the ovens. I think you get the idea. Make a list of assignments. Sorry, let me just grab some water. With their due dates, and then highlight the things that must be done first. It's very typical of children with these difficulties to choose the stuff they're good at and the stuff they enjoy. And unfortunately, life's not only made up of those things. There are some other things we need to do as well. So help them to prioritize in terms of that. It's no use you finish the Lego thing you had to build for 3 weeks' time, but actually you've got an essay tomorrow that's due. So very important to do that. Then try easy projects first, okay? Especially with little children, and they can start learning from a very young age. If something's too big, break it up in smaller steps. So that is the main thing. So anything that seems overwhelming, break it up into smaller steps. Okay, so a little joke. I've spent 5 hours working on my report, 1 hour to go to the mall for an ink cartridge, 2 hours on hold with tech support, 45 minutes looking for a sheet of white paper, 30 minutes searching for the perfect font. I think it does sound kind of familiar. Okay, and that brings us to task initiation. Starting tasks right away despite distractions. Okay, so as an adult, I think most of us can relate to the scenario of having to sit down at your computer. So pretend I have to now do, or imagine I have to do this presentation on the midterm. So now I've got to do this, okay? But suddenly, okay, now there was a couple of important emails I had to check first. Oh no, I need some water, and off I go. Oh, now I've had water, now I need the loo. Okay, yeah, maybe I just need to check if there's something on Facebook that's interesting. And that is how we procrastinate. And that is how we don't get things done. So that is what task initiation is about. Teaching your child to get things done. Okay, so there's various things that can work for various age groups. But a very good idea is to use a timer to count down the time before the child has to get to work. So we do understand that sometimes our drivenness wants kids to get going and we want to finish the homework, so we do other stuff. They do need a break when they come from home. So include that. Say you've got time to go shower because you've just come back from school in the time of COVID. I'm going to give you a snack and then I'm going to give you 15 minutes to play. So when the long arm of the clock is on 3, I mean the short arm on 3, the long arm on 12, we're going to start working. Okay. If you have an iPad, you can look up countdown clocks on your iPad. You can download a whole lot of free ones and they're very interesting. I know some of the children, some of the teachers in the classes have those. If not, they should really have those. It's very important. So you get different ones. You get ones with pictures, ones with colors, but basically it's a clock and you set it. So you'll say, I want a 15-minute timer. Okay. So the clock works on that 15 minutes and it shows you as the time gets less, then there's less of the piece open and it closes up as the time goes by. A very nice visual thing for children who don't understand time yet. So look up countdown clock. You can download them on your iPad. I'm pretty sure on your phone as well. Practice the rocket ship countdown. Okay, so we've now done all the things we need to do before we get going with our homework or whatever. So we count together. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. Get up and get going. Okay, so that's a little way to transition from, not being ready to work. And the more you practice it, even in your class, the more the children will become familiar with that. Work in short bursts and give breaks. Take into account your child's age, your child's concentration levels. No one can just continue working. Sometimes our anxiety wants our children to study and study and study. Work for a period, have a break. Work for a period, have a break. That makes it easier to kind of manage the getting going again. Provide incentives after a set of tasks is completed. Now, everybody likes a reward. No one works for nothing. So you can say, okay, so if you finish this work before this and this time, you can take the drawing pad and the pens and you can have an extra bit of time for drawing, or we can go for a walk, something like that. You can see I'm steering away from you can watch TV for an hour or 2 or 3 or 4. You know what I mean. So give rewards that are easy to do, concrete, and that's not out of proportion with the task that they had to do. Do challenging tasks together. I watched a very interesting video on YouTube last night about a lady she's not a professional. She's not done any studies on this. She suffers from an attention deficit disorder. And she was going through what works for her. And she was saying that one thing that works for her is to work where there are other people. She said it's harder to not work when somebody else is working than when she's on her own. Then she can get quite distracted quite easily. On the other side of it, so do challenging tasks together. So if the child has to clean their bedroom, that is quite a task. I mean, cleaning your bedroom, what does it mean? Does it mean clean the carpets? Does it mean vacuum? Does it mean pack your toys away? It probably means all of that, and they've got no idea how to do that. So you're going to do the planning, like we said, prioritize, break it up into smaller bits for the child, and then you're going to say, let's start together. And that also is a good incentive for initiating tasks and then curbing that procrastination. I did get the presentation done in the end. Okay. So the next one is organization. So you might not be the Marie, whatever her name is, Kudo, whatever, the Japanese lady, Kondo, sorry, who's into the fascinating ways of organizing your lives. You might not be her, but it's very important that organizational skills are modeled to your child. So I'm sorry to say this, but if your house is disorganized and your kitchen's disorganized and everything else is disorganized, you are going to have a disorganized child. Okay, so I'm pretty organized. You can come to my house, usually neat, tidy, everything is sorted, but there's one gray area in my life, and I'm very embarrassed to share this with you. It's my handbag. So for some reason, I've never developed the discipline to put my bank cards back into my wallet. I forever leave the coin purse open so the coins fall out, and slips. I just don't get rid of them immediately. I always think like maybe there's something for my tax or something, so I keep them. So, and then what happens is, like, I get to the shop, there's a whole queue behind me, like yesterday, and I'm searching through my bag, and I can't find my credit card because it's lying right in the bottom, and my smart shopper card because I don't know where I put it. So, and that causes so much stress, and that's what I want to say. Being disorganized causes stress. So instead of having all your school pens together and your scissors and your glue and whatever, if you have to go search for that because you didn't put it in a place where it's all together, it causes stress. It causes stress for everyone. So model organizational skills. Find a place for everything and put everything in its place. Marie Kondo will tell you to declutter. The less things you have, the less there is to organize. So that's a good thing. We all have too much stuff, and I think that causes the disorganization. And the same with classrooms. You know, very often you'll go into a classroom, you're like, oh, my teacher can't find a timetable, and I need to set up a therapy time. And it's under everything and that. You're not being a very good model to the children in your class if you are like that. Sort things out, get rid of things, put things in containers. I know it sounds easy, and I do know from personal experience of working with people who struggle to organize things. They do not have that automatic way of sorting things out, categorizing them, finding systems. It's hard for some people. It's a very important skill to have. Keep same things together. So in your kitchen, if you're baking stuffs together, next time you bake, you'll find it. If all your spices and it's together, you'll find it. It'll be less stressful having to cook if you know where everything is. And the same with homework. As I said, if you keep all the child's stationery for homework together, this is where their books go, and this is where the spare stationery goes, then it's quite easy. I put my bag down by my desk and I've got everything that I need. Store things in clear containers so that you can see what they are. There was a very interesting binge-watching show on Netflix the other day, and I watched all the episodes because I love organizing. And it was about these people who have these two ladies who have this business where they organize people's houses. I'm not saying the hoarders' houses, celebrities' houses and whatever. And I was like, wow, look at all the see-through containers. So, it does get a little bit... of an obsession at some stage. But yes, you can see what's in there. And teach your children from the beginning. Lego goes here. Your books go on the shelf. All your toy cars go there. And then when they need to play with it, it's so much easier to find it. Let them organize their homework space. Let them tidy up every day after homework. Then it's ready for the next day. Mark off spaces inside or on the desk for items like books and pencil box using masking tape. So I've put that little photo in there, and that's from a classroom. And very often teachers will complain that children struggle with organizing their desk. If a child struggles with that, you need to help them. You need to teach it explicitly, remember, because they're not going to learn it themselves. They're not going to pick it up. They are not organized. So what they do, and we've done it before at the school, is put masking tape. This is where your pencil case goes. This is where your homework diary goes. And the book that you're working in is right in front of you. We often see children working and they can't actually get to their book because there's so many other things on their desk. You've got the ideal opportunity to teach this to the children. If they struggle with it, make little garages like they did with the masking tape. And that way it will organize their brains and it will show them how to do things. And hopefully next year when they move to the next class, they'll be able to do it themselves. Okay. Time management. Making the best use of time to complete tasks. So the first thing that you can do is practice estimating time for different tasks. So when I help children with executive functioning difficulties in therapy, we definitely make a game out of it because that's what we do in OT. And children just have no idea. First of all, their time concept is not developed. It's very interesting. You say to your child at home that we're going to go to Cape Town in December, and then midterm comes and I ask them, oh, are you going away for midterm? Yes, I'm going to Cape Town, because they've got no idea when December is, how long it's going to take us to get to December. And just like that, they don't understand how long it takes to perform tasks. So you can make a fun thing out of it. How long do you think it will take you to walk to your bedroom and fetch your slippers and come back? And they might say 2 seconds, or they might say an hour, and you write that down and you time them and you show them, oh, actually, it only took you this long. You can do it in various kinds of scenarios. Very important to kind of work out that thing of how long will it take you to get ready for school in the morning. Because often children with executive functioning difficulties struggle with time management. So when you're ready to leave for school, they're still having breakfast or playing, and then everybody's tempers skyrocket and it's a bad start to a good day. So teach them how long things take. Let them experiment with that. Okay, your teacher said you must write 5 sentences. How long do you think it will take you? Okay, and then that'll teach them to leave enough time for things. So, for example, there's an important test coming and they're like, oh, no, it'll only take me an hour to learn for the test. And then they leave it till the day before, got a lot of other stuff on their plate on that day, and that hour is simply not enough because they can't estimate time. Okay. Use a visual timer again, like I told you, to show how much time is left for a session, for a task or a session. Identify and reduce distractors. We call them the time eaters. Okay, so get the task done. So make sure there's nothing to distract your child. Don't do homework by the TV because TV is a distractor. If the dog comes and messes with your child, or your child messes with the dog while they're doing homework, that's a distractor and it eats time. So identify those time eaters. You don't do it behind your child's back. They do it with you. What are the things that stops you from finishing your work? Very important skill to have. Provide work check-ins to students or your child to make sure that they're on the right track. So you've now helped them to plan and organize. There's a timer there. And now you're going to step out and have that cup of tea or start dinner or whatever. Don't forget to check on them. Check in regularly because they are still learning. Just because you've done all the prep work doesn't mean they are actually going to be continuing with the work. So rather than ending up, okay, now the time's up, we're going to go say a happy birthday to Granny on her birthday, and now the work's not done. So rather do that regular check-ins. Teach the child how to maximize downtime. So if you finish your work early, then you can start something else or do something that you like. That's a great motivator. I mean, we'll all get our stuff done if we know there's that time to do the stuff that we really want to do. Time for them to read that book they're dying to finish. Okay, then you can play time-based games or add a timer to a game. One of those little egg timers, that works well. To Scrabble or Pictionary or whatever, to show children a time limit so that they can get used to the idea, not with putting pressure on them, but so that they can get used to the idea of finishing things within an allocated time. Okay. Are you all still okay? I wouldn't know. Okay, so we're going to go on to attention. So focusing on a task or a person for a period of time. I didn't want to put too much into the, on this in the presentation, because attention is such a complicated thing, because there's different types of attention. There's focused attention, shared attention, shifting attention from one task to the other, and that's things that children need to learn. But let's just talk about plain attention and focus. Okay, if you know your child struggles with things like that, give clear one-step directions. Do not expect them to remember more than one step, because then they're going to not succeed in the task that you want them to do. Incorporate movement during your lessons and activities and give movement breaks. So whether it's in class or at home, movement is great. So there's a whole lot of things that one can get on the internet with fun monster movement breaks, where you print it out, cut it out, put it in a jar, and we pick one, and now we're all going to walk like monsters, or we're going to run somewhere. Do things like that. Children do need those breaks. They cannot sustain focus, or even just sitting at their desk and doing different tasks. They need movement breaks. Reduce distractions in the room. Make sure that there's not too many posters on the wall at home or in the classroom. Make sure that they're not doing their homework in their bedroom, where there's a lot of their toys around, or there's a fan that's making a noise. Make sure that it's ideal for working. And saying that, you cannot let your child do homework in the car, and you can't in a fair way expect them to do homework at their sister's swimming lesson while you're waiting. So be very mindful of the habits that you are instilling in your child. When we're going to be doing work, it's worth doing it well. So do it in the right environment where they can actually pay attention and focus. Provide fidgets, so little things that you can fidget with that won't interfere with the classroom. And again, explicitly teach how to use them as a tool. They don't work for every child. We've had an interesting experience recently where it distracted the child more. There were obviously other things going on. But, you get lots of little fidget toys, squishy things, even just a paper clip or a piece of press stick. It often helps children and adults to concentrate. Set a timer for work sessions, again, so that they can be mindful of how much time they have and how much time is left. Assign a study buddy during work sessions. I think that's what that lady meant when she said she works better if there's somebody also working in her environment. And then you can play some attention-boosting games and puzzles. Games and activities. Like Simon says, you really have to listen and focus. Puzzles. I know that a lot of children don't like puzzles, and they don't like them for various reasons. Children always say they're boring, and from a therapist's viewpoint, if a child says something is boring, it's generally hard for them. But a puzzle is such a good activity for attention and focus, because it teaches you to persevere, to stay on the task, to only think of what you're doing until you've completed the puzzle. So they do still have some value. It's very interesting. We try and teach children these things, and sometimes they don't even know what it means to concentrate. I often ask children, we use some metacognitive strategies, which I'll be talking about just now, and ask them, what does it mean to concentrate? And hear what they say, and help them figure that out. We're not trying to teach them things behind their back. We're trying to explicitly teach them. So they're part of the process, and they need to know. So just for interest's sake, I've put in this average concentration span by age. So just in terms of expectations, so they say you take the child's age, times it by 2 or 3 or 4, maximum 5. And that gives you the range of what they should be able to actively concentrate. So grade double R's, probably not more than 10, 15 minutes. And as you can see, it gets a bit more after that. I'm sure they only went up to age 12 because no one can concentrate more than 60 minutes. That's why presentations aren't longer than that. Okay, let's look at working memory. That's quite a buzzword these days. Very often children have psychoeducational assessments, and it comes back that they have issues with working memory. So your working memory is really your ability to hold information in your head and work with it. So if this was a face-to-face presentation, I would have all told you now to, in your head without a pen or paper or your secret calculator, to work out what 45 times 92 is. Okay, I'm not going to ask for answers, but go try that in your head. So you are working and holding that information, manipulating it, doing the processes. And that's an example of working memory. So working memory is a very tricky thing because there are programs like CogMed, I think, that works on working memory. They do actually believe now that you cannot improve working memory as such, as a pure skill. What you can do is you can teach children skills. So the first skill would be to work on their visualization skills. So what is visualization? It's your ability to make a picture in your head. Okay, so you're reading a book, you're starting to put everything together in a picture, and that aids your memory. So for example, a nice way to practice that is if you give your child a task and you say, set the table for 3 people. Okay, so you let them say, now I want you to really think, what is it going to look like in your head? And then let them draw it. Okay, because that is such a good activity of putting what's in your head down on paper. So you've used your visualization skills. Later on, when they get better, you can say, well, explain to me what it's going to look like. But at this early stages, visualization is a good thing. Any task that they're planning or any activity, let them think about what it's going to look like. Make a picture in your head and put it down on paper. Have your child teach you. They've really got to think about the steps of things when they're explaining something to you. So teaching somebody else is actually a good way of learning. Try games that use visual memory. Lumosity is one of my favorite iPad apps. They've got great visual memory activities. Try those. Chunk information for smaller, it says bytes, bits. Chunk information into smaller bits. So what that means is, if you break it up into little parts, it's easier to remember. So for example, learning a phone number, you almost like break it up into 3s, 082, 845, 5558, that's mine. So I've made a little rhyme of it. But if I have to think how many 5s there are, I actually don't even know, because that's my little rhyme to say it. So I've chunked those little bits, and that helps me. Make connections. See how things interrelate when you have to remember things and learn things. Encourage active reading. Active reading means that I'm reading with a highlighter, not in your book from the library, obviously, but your study material or something interesting that you find that you need to remember, because that's where your working memory comes in. You read with a highlighter and with some notes so that you can write important things down, because by writing it down, you are using a multi-sensory approach. You are reading it, you're seeing it, you're writing it down. Now you're seeing it on a different kind of a level. If you say it, then you also hear it. Play card games. Card games are great fun. Everybody loves card games. While you're playing a card game, you've got to remember the rules. You've also got to remember who put which card down earlier on, so that you can kind of keep track of the game. So try those. Uno, Go Fish, any of those games. Okay. But no idea about the time. Okay, a little bit more. So metacognition, it's being aware of what we know, and it helps us to learn. So we teach students how their brains are wired for growth. I read about a very interesting experiment that they were doing. They took a senior primary class and divided them into 2. So they taught both groups study skills, but the one group, they actually showed them how the brain neurons work and how the synapses work and how our brain can form more connections and things. And very interestingly, those students were the more motivated ones to go over things again and again and to practice more and more, because they knew why they were doing it, because their brains can actually grow through that. Other ones were just doing it because they were told to, and they gave up quite easily. Give student practice recognizing what they don't understand. You know, I'm thinking back of school where they used to mark your books, and then you see your marks and you see your mistakes, and you might have to do corrections or not. And you actually really didn't know what you did wrong, because no one discussed it with you. No one helped you to figure out how you can do better. That's a very important thing to teach children, to know what their mistakes are and what they did wrong and how to improve. Model your own thinking. So as a grown-up, speak out loud. Tell them how you're thinking, what you're doing. Okay, got to go and prepare dinner now. Okay, I thought maybe we'll make paella tonight. So I've got some ingredients. Will you help me get them out? Okay, then we're going to start and we're going to do this and this. And by 6 o'clock, we'll eat. Not tonight, though. Okay, so model your thinking in class as well. Go through your thought processes because they're learning through you. Ask them questions about their thinking and teach them self-monitoring and self-checking skills. That's something that I often use in handwriting, even from grade 1. You know, let them check how many times that they go out the line and didn't bump the line. That's how they learn what their mistakes are and how they learn to improve on that. Okay, I think we're nearly at the end. So the next one is self-control or also self-regulation. So this is very, very important. And, you know, this is where a lot of children struggle at school because they cannot manage their thoughts, their feelings, and their behavior in order to make good choices. They don't have good self-regulation skills. So practice wait time. There's nothing wrong with waiting. You can say to the child, that, wait, I'm not going to listen to you right now, but when I'm done with typing this page, then I will listen to you. You're giving them a promise and you're going to keep it, but not all their needs need to be met immediately. Teach your child delay of gratification. Create a calm down area, okay? So when your child gets overstimulated and over-aroused and have sensory issues and whatever, have a little nook in their bedroom where there's maybe a little tent or a little blanket over some table where they can go and calm down. It teaches them to self-calm, which is very good. Practice mindfulness activities, yoga, meditation, all of those. Teach breathing activities. I'm going to quickly go on to this one. Every child should have a breathing card stuck on their desk, a laminated one. We're living through such times of anxiety that we all need to breathe. So this is just 2 examples. The mountain one, breathe in and out. It's usually something that you can trace. You get that one with the lazy 8. I like the hand because your hand's always with you. So you breathe in. When you get to the top of the finger, I'm not going to do it all now, but when you get to the 5th one and you've done deep breathing slowly in and out, you are generally very calm. The next one is to play self-regulation games. So there are lots of games like that where you can teach them to stop, to wait. Simon Says is a good one. You know, they have to listen, they have to wait. If you say, sit on your knees, and you didn't say Simon Says sit on your knees, then of course they're out. Blurt is a good one. It's a game of definitions where you say the definition and children have to guess the word, something you can make up easily, or you can even do it subject related. But basically you can do it in fun ways in the class. And children are dying to say the answer, and then you say to them, okay, this round, only the girls are going to say the answer, or the boys, or everybody with long hair, or everybody with lace shoes, or whatever. You can make things up as you go. And they really have to learn self-control because they might be the only one knowing the answer and they're not allowed to say it. Stoplight, let the little grade R's and double R's move around as in the classroom. And when you say, that's green light, so they're allowed to move. Then you say yellow or orange light, and they've got to move slower. And when you say red light, they've got to stop. And they almost can't stop themselves. Such a good activity to do. There's a whole lot of others that you can look up. They're all on the internet, or you can ask me. I don't want to spend too much time on this. Another thing that's important is to teach children the size of a problem, because self-regulation often leads to children who are over-aroused. Everything's a problem. They come running to you for everything. This is a very interesting thing, and there's lots of things on the internet like this, but this is sweet because it says, if somebody doesn't ask you to play, or you can't find your pen, or you lost a game, it's really just a glitch. It's not a problem. Okay, then they tell you certain things that you do. Take a deep breath, go sit down and whatever. If you've got a runny nose or you need to go to the bathroom, for you, for the children, it's like the end of the world. But actually, if you put it on the scale, it's a little problem. medium problems, big problems, and thank goodness we don't often have to deal with the emergencies, which is fires and earthquakes. But if there's a real danger, that is when you want to say to your teacher, Mrs. Manuel, listen, but you don't really have to interrupt her for a little problem. So you teach children how to deal with things, how to delay gratification and wait for your attention. Okay. Lastly, perseverance. Okay. Working through challenges to complete a goal. Very important that you teach your child grittiness by example. Okay. If they think that everything is easy for you, then they're never going to learn anything. Try something hard. Show them how hard it is for you. Show them how you go through the process. You try again and again, and you persevere. Very good for children to see that. Provide challenging kid activities that are not easily achieved. You can't succeed in everything. The worst thing that we can do for our children is to teach them or show or pretend actually that everything will be easy for them. So sometimes it's good to give a child not an unrealistic challenge, but something where they will actually not achieve, so that they can learn, how do I cope with those emotions? Do I try again? What do I do? Remember that it's okay for your child to get frustrated sometimes. They also need to learn to deal with that. Offer praise and encouragement for effort, not necessarily for outcome, for effort. At the same time, recognize that there are times when it's okay to quit. That's also a life skill. You know, we can't persevere. I remember when I was little, I did Spanish dancing at the recreation center for years. And then I decided I didn't want to do this again. It was the worst thing for me because I'm going to quit. My mom said, it's okay. You've given it a go. You don't want to do it anymore. It's okay to quit. A very important life skill. And then set realistic and age-appropriate challenges. Obviously, you're not going to do the same for your 5-year-old that you're going to do for your 10-year-old. Make sure that whatever challenge you provide, that it is realistic. Okay, and then last thing, things that you can do at home apart from all the other ideas I've given you. Live life out loud. Let your children hear and see how you do what you do. When you're planning a holiday, let them sit with you. We're going to start first and look at dates. We're going to look at accommodation. Okay, Dad said we can only spend so much a night, so that's not going to work out. Okay, so let's find something else. Let them be with you when it doesn't just happen behind their backs. They need to know about these things. Plan a meal together. That's such a good planning activity. Tidy up the room. Let them help you. They can learn about organizational skills. List our goals together. Practice coping strategies and self-control. Learn something new as a family. If you're not into hiking, maybe go try that out. Learn a new activity. Estimate the time that tasks are going to take as a family. That teaches time management. Do a puzzle. They can work on their working memory. There are so many things that we can do. I think time is up, so I hope that you've learned something, and I know I spoke quite fast, but that it's given you some food for thought, and also perhaps some like places where you can find, I'm back, where you can find answers and more information. There's so much available out there. Okay.
Yes, I just want to say thank you so much, Ronel. That was a wonderful, wonderful presentation. And I'm sure we all benefited tremendously from all of this. I've got a few comments that say great ideas. And Colette Mark says this can also benefit the younger teenager. Definitely it can, because we sit with a huge problem with self-regulation, where we need that self-control, especially us psychologists deal with that a lot, and you slotted in there brilliantly. This was great help, and I'm sure everything is valuable. If there's any questions, they're all just commenting, saying how wonderful you've done. There's no questions, but I'm sure they can email you if they need advice or need to contact you for some reason.
Okay, I see Mrs. Vanel asked if she can have access to maybe the PowerPoint presentation for some ideas. I'm happy to put something together and also some online resources if you're interested in looking at things like that, definitely. I saw Ms. Harris said, when can she sign up for a session? So we'll have to talk.
I'm sure all us ladies would love to sign up so that we can get our handbags organized.
Yeah, I'll come with you to that lesson.
But thank you, everybody. It was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much to our occupational therapist, Ronel. We benefit so much from the speech therapist and the OT when we work in multidisciplinary team. Yeah, it really was very, very helpful and insightful. Thank you, Ronel.
Thank you,
everybody.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you then.